Captain James Miller floated in the observation module of the International Space Station, his eyes fixed on the data streaming across his tablet. The numbers didn't make sense. For the third time in an hour, the station's sensors were picking up strange energy readings from beyond Neptune's orbit. "Houston, ISS here. Are you seeing these readings?" Miller's voice was steady, masking his growing concern. He'd spent 15 years in space, but he'd never seen anything like this. The response took longer than usual. "ISS, we confirm the anomaly. Stand by for further instructions." Miller knew that tone. It was the same one used during major emergencies, calm on the surface but hiding an undercurrent of tension. He turned to look out the reinforced window, even though he knew whatever was out there was too far to see with the naked eye. Down on Earth, in the basement of NASA's main facility, Dr. Anna Thompson stared at the same data with wide eyes. As the head of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Program, she'd spent her career searching for signs of extraterrestrial life. Now, faced with actual evidence, her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. "Get me the UN Secretary General," she said to her assistant, "and contact every major observatory on the planet. I need independent confirmation within the hour." Within 3 hours, telescopes across the globe had turned their gaze to the anomaly. The images they captured sent shockwaves through the scientific community. There, hovering just beyond Neptune's orbit, was an artificial structure nearly the size of Earth's moon. The structure was clearly not natural. Its surface gleamed with a metallic sheen, and regular patterns of lights pulsed across its hull. Most disturbing were the smaller objects emerging from it, ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever launched into space. World leaders gathered in an emergency UN session, while military commanders huddled in secret bunkers. The internet exploded with theories and panic as amateur astronomers began spotting the object. Governments couldn't keep this hidden even if they wanted to. It was visible to anyone with a powerful enough telescope. Dr. Thompson found herself rushed to the White House, along with the world's leading experts in astronomy, physics, and military strategy. In the Situation Room, she explained what they knew so far. "The object appears to be a constructed space station, or ship of some kind," she said, pointing to the high-resolution images. "Based on its size and energy output, we're looking at technology centuries ahead of our own. The smaller vessels emerging from it show signs of artificial gravity and propulsion systems we've only theorized about." "Are they hostile?" asked the president, cutting straight to the point. "We don't know," Thompson replied honestly, "but they're making no attempt to hide their presence. In fact," she paused, checking the latest data on her tablet, "they're moving closer. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth's orbit in approximately 72 hours. The room fell silent. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for generations, but now that it was happening, no one felt prepared. General Mark Roberts, head of the newly formed United Nations Space Defense Force, spoke up. "We have to assume they know about us. That thing's big enough to have spotted our radio signals, our satellites, everything. They're not trying to sneak up on us. They're making the show of force." The president nodded grimly. "How many ships do we have ready?" 6 experimental space fighters and 2 orbital defense platforms," Roberts replied. "Against something that size, we might as well be throwing rocks." As the meeting continued, more data poured in from observatories worldwide. The alien structure had begun broadcasting something, regular pulses of energy that seemed intentional. Code breakers and linguists were already working to decipher it. Back on the ISS, Captain Miller received new orders: maintain position and continue monitoring. He watched as the distant object grew slowly larger in their most powerful telescopes. In all his years of training, nothing had prepared him for this moment. Earth's first contact with an alien civilization was about to begin, and humanity was about to learn just how small they were in the grand scheme of things, or so the aliens thought. Little did they know, humanity had a few surprises of its own. The first message from the Galactic Empire arrived exactly 48 hours after their ships were spotted. It came not as radio waves or light signals, but as a direct transmission that overrode every digital screen on Earth simultaneously. Dr. Anna Thompson watched in amazement as her computer screen flickered in change. Perfect English text appeared, scrolling slowly across the display. The aliens hadn't bothered with primitive communication methods. They had simply taken control of Earth's entire digital infrastructure, like it was child's play. The message read, "To the governing bodies of planet Earth, we are the Galactic Empire, rulers of 50,000 star systems. We have monitored your civilization for the past 60 Earth years. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. Resistance is unnecessary and would result in unfortunate losses." What followed was a detailed inventory of Earth's resources, military capabilities, and technological achievements. They knew everything: the exact number of nuclear weapons, the location of every military base, even classified research projects, or at least almost everything. General Roberts slammed his fist on the conference table. "They're toying with us. This isn't first contact. This is an invasion force showing us they've already won." The UN Security Council had gathered in their underground bunker. On screens around the room, other world leaders joined virtually, their faces grim. The Empire's message was still broadcasting worldwide, causing panic in every major city. "They're right about one thing," the Chinese president said through a translator. "Our weapons would be useless against their technology. Those ships they're showing us, each one could probably destroy a continent." Captain Miller, still aboard the ISS, sent urgent updates about the Imperial fleet's movement. The smaller ships had spread out in a perfect formation, creating a net around Earth's orbit. The main vessel, now close enough to be visible from Earth as a small dot in the night sky, had positioned itself above the North Pole. "They're giving us 24 hours to surrender," Dr. Thompson said, reading the final part of the message. "They promise to preserve our culture as a protected species if we submit willingly. If we resist." She didn't need to finish the sentence. In military bases across the world, soldiers watched helplessly as alien ships the size of cities took up positions overhead. Radar systems showed hundreds of smaller vessels entering the atmosphere, hovering just at the edge of space, waiting. The Empire's message continued scrolling. "Your species has potential. Your adaptability and resourcefulness are noted traits that would benefit the Empire. However, your primitive space travel capabilities and reliance on fossil fuels mark you as a Level 2 civilization. As per Imperial protocol, Level 2 civilizations require guidance and protection under direct Imperial control." President Baker of the United States stood in the Oval Office, watching the alien ships through a powerful telescope. "They think they know everything about us," he said quietly. "That's their first mistake." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility unknown even to most world governments, Dr. Thomas Ward received a coded message. Project Prometheus, his life's work, might be humanity's only hope. He began the activation sequence, knowing they would only get one chance to use it. The Empire's final message was almost gentle, like parents speaking to children. "We understand this transition may be difficult. To ease the process, we have already begun integration protocols. Your internet systems now operate on Imperial networks. Your financial markets have been connected to the Galactic trade system. Your leaders will be given positions within the Imperial bureaucracy, ensuring a smooth transition of power." What the Empire didn't know was that humanity had spent those 60 years of observation preparing for this exact scenario. While they watched Earth's surface, humans had been busy underground and underwater, developing technologies that worked on principles the Empire had never considered. As the deadline approached, Earth's leaders gathered one final time to make their decision. The choice before them was clear: submit to Imperial rule and live as protected servants, or risk everything on a desperate plan that might just prove humanity wasn't as primitive as the Empire thought. The clock was ticking, and Earth's response would change the galaxy forever. 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, In a facility carved into the bedrock of the Mariana Trench, Dr. Thomas Ward stood before his life's work. Project Prometheus filled an underground chamber larger than a football field. Blue light pulsed through transparent tubes that lined the walls, casting moving shadows across the gathered scientists and military personnel. "It's not a weapon, not really," Dr. Ward explained to the visiting world leaders who had been secretly transported to the facility. "It's more like a key that turns off a car's engine." General Roberts stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. "Explain it again for everyone here." "No scientific terms. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Dr. Ward nodded, pointing to a holographic display showing the Imperial ships in orbit. 60 years ago, when we first detected their probe ships watching Earth, we learned something incredible. Their faster-than-light drives create tiny tears in space. These tears heal quickly, but they leave behind a unique energy signature. President Baker interrupted. "And you can detect these signatures." "Better than that," Dr. Ward smiled. "We figured out how to disrupt them. The Empire's entire civilization depends on faster-than-light travel. Without it, their ships would take years to reach the nearest star system. Project Prometheus doesn't destroy their ships. It just makes it impossible for them to use their FTL drives within our solar system." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Thompson, who had been studying the project's data, looked up from her tablet. "They'll be trapped here," she said quietly. "Their weapons will still work, but they'll have no way to call for help or retreat quickly." On the facility's monitors, they could see the Imperial fleet continuing its deployment around Earth. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they hadn't even bothered to scan for underwater bases. Their arrogance had given humanity the time it needed to prepare. Captain Miller's voice crackled over the communication system from the ISS. "More ships are arriving through their FTL corridors. They're positioning themselves in a battle formation. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it soon." Dr. Ward moved to a central control panel, his hands hovering over the activation sequence. "There's something else you need to know," he said gravely. "Once we activate Prometheus, it will affect our own experimental FTL projects too. We'll be cutting ourselves off from faster-than-light travel until we can find a way around our own defense system." The Chinese president spoke through a translator, his image appearing on a nearby screen. "How long did it take to build this facility?" 20 years, Dr. Ward replied. "We have similar facilities near the North and South Poles. All three must be activated simultaneously to create a field large enough to cover the solar system." The facility shook slightly as something massive moved through the ocean far above them. Imperial ships were diving into Earth's oceans, mapping the seafloor. They were getting closer. "They're looking for resources to claim," Dr. Thompson explained, watching the sensor readings. "Standard Imperial protocol, according to their message. They survey everything before beginning their integration process." General Roberts turned to the gathered leaders. "We have maybe 6 hours before they find this facility. We need to make a decision now. Do we surrender and live as their subjects, or do we show them that humanity isn't as helpless as they think?" Dr. Ward brought up another display, showing the quantum mechanics behind Project Prometheus. "The beauty of this system is its elegance. It doesn't harm them. It doesn't destroy anything. It simply creates a field that makes FTL travel impossible within our solar system, like putting up a fence around our property." President Baker stepped forward. "And if they attack us anyway?" "Then they'll be attacking from a position of weakness," General Roberts replied. "Their supply lines will be cut. No reinforcements, no retreat. They'll have to think very carefully about starting a fight they can't easily finish." The facility trembled again. Above them, Imperial ships were getting closer to discovering humanity's secret. Time was running out, and Earth's leaders faced the most important decision in human history. Behind them, Project Prometheus hummed quietly, waiting to change the balance of power in ways the Empire could never have expected. The Imperial flagship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metal mountain. It stopped directly above New York City, hovering just below the clouds. Smaller ships surrounded it, their silver hulls reflecting sunlight across the frightened city below. The sight was being broadcast worldwide. The Empire wanted everyone to watch what happened next. High Commander Marcus, a name Earth's translators had given him since his real name was unpronounceable, requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. The Empire had found traces of unusual energy readings near the ocean floor, and their patience was running out. The UN building's main conference room had been chosen for the meeting. General Roberts watched from a corner as the Imperial delegation arrived. They looked almost human, except for their strange silver eyes and unusually pale skin. High Commander Marcus stood nearly 7 feet tall, wearing a uniform that seemed to shift colors as he moved. "We have been generous with our time," Marcus said, his voice translated perfectly by devices his soldiers had set up. "Our scans show you are hiding something from us. This is unacceptable." President Baker, representing Earth alongside other world leaders, maintained a calm expression. "We are a sovereign planet, Commander. We have the right to our secrets." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his silver eyes. "Rights? You mistake your position. Let me be clear about your options." He pressed a button on his wrist, and a hologram appeared above the conference table. It showed the Imperial fleet in orbit, thousands of ships, each capable of devastating destruction. Option 1. Surrender now. Accept Imperial rule. Become protected citizens of the Empire. Your leaders will keep limited power, your people will gain access to Imperial technology, and your transition will be peaceful. The hologram changed to show images of advanced cities on other worlds. Many species have chosen this path. They now thrive under our guidance. Dr. Thompson, sitting next to the Chinese president, studied the images carefully. The cities looked prosperous, but she noticed something telling. In each image, the local species served while Imperial officers commanded. Option 2, Marcus continued, his voice hardening. The hologram shifted to show weapons being fired from Imperial ships. "We take this planet by force. Your military installations are already targeted. Your nuclear weapons have been neutralized. We can end this in hours, though the loss of life would be regrettable." Deep beneath the ocean, Dr. Ward received live feed of the meeting. Project Prometheus was ready. All 3 facilities, in the Mariana Trench, the Arctic, and Antarctica, waited for the signal. His hands hovered over the controls as he listened to the Empire's threats. Back in New York, High Commander Marcus walked to the window, gazing out at his flagship floating above the city. "You have 1 hour to decide. I suggest you choose wisely." He turned back to face Earth's leaders. "Remember, we have watched your species for decades. We know everything about you." General Roberts caught President Baker's eye and gave a slight nod. Through hidden earpieces, both men could hear Captain Miller's updates from the ISS. The Imperial fleet was still growing, more ships arriving every minute through their FTL corridors. "Before you leave, Commander," President Baker stood slowly. "I have a question. In all your years watching Earth, did you ever wonder why a species as primitive as ours spent so much time studying quantum physics?" Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Your attempts at scientific advancement are admirable, but ultimately insignificant. You barely understand the basics of space travel." "Space travel, yes," Dr. Thompson spoke up. "But there are other fields of science, other ways of understanding the universe." The High Commander's silver eyes narrowed. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "You have 1 hour," he repeated, then turned and left with his delegation. As soon as the Imperial representatives were gone, President Baker activated a secure communication line to the underwater facility. "Dr. Ward, are you ready?" "Yes, sir. All 3 facilities are prepared. But remember, once we activate Prometheus, there's no going back. We'll be forcing a confrontation with the most powerful empire in the galaxy." The world leaders looked at each other. They had minutes to make a decision that would affect all of humanity. In orbit, Imperial ships continued to arrive, their FTL drives tearing small holes in space. They didn't realize that each new arrival strengthened Earth's resolve to activate Project Prometheus. 55 minutes after the Imperial delegation left the UN building, Earth's leaders reached their decision. The vote was unanimous. No one wanted to kneel before the Empire, no matter how advanced their technology might be. President Baker stood in front of a simple camera in the UN building. His message would be sent using the Empire's own communication system, a final show of defiance. Behind him, through the window, the Imperial flagship still floated above New York like a metal cloud. "High Commander Marcus," Baker began, his voice steady. "This is Earth's response to your ultimatum. We will not submit. You have 24 hours to remove your forces from our solar system. This is not a negotiation." In the Imperial flagship, Marcus watched the transmission with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. He turned to his advisors, their silver eyes reflecting the light of multiple screens showing Earth's military movements, or lack thereof. "They aren't even mobilizing their forces," one advisor noted. "No missile launches, no fighter jets. Nothing." Marcus nodded. As expected. They know resistance is pointless. He opened a channel to respond to Earth's message. "President Baker, your bravery is admirable but misplaced. Perhaps a demonstration is needed." At his command, one of the smaller Imperial ships fired a single shot. A beam of energy struck the ocean far from any population center, instantly vaporizing a cubic mile of water. The resulting steam cloud rose into the atmosphere like a white tower. In the underwater facility, Dr. Ward watched the energy readings from the Imperial weapon. "Incredible power," he muttered, "but also incredibly wasteful." He turned to Dr. Thompson, who had been transported there after the UN meeting. "They rely too much on brute force. They never considered that power isn't everything." Captain Miller's voice came through their communication system from the ISS. "More Imperial ships are still arriving. They're positioning themselves for a full attack. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it soon." General Roberts, also now in the underwater facility, studied the tactical displays. The Imperial fleet had spread out across Earth's orbit, positioning weapons to target every major city simultaneously. They were preparing to make an example of Earth, a lesson to any other worlds that might consider resistance. "Send the second message," General Roberts ordered. President Baker appeared on Imperial screens once again. "Your demonstration changes nothing. 23 hours remaining. Any hostile action will be met with consequences you haven't considered." High Commander Marcus actually laughed at this. The sound was broadcast across all channels, meant to show Earth's leaders how foolish they seemed to the Empire. "Consequences. You can barely reach your own moon. Your most powerful weapons would scratch our smallest ships. What consequences could you possibly offer?" In response, Earth sent something unexpected: detailed scans of the Imperial fleet's FTL drive signatures. Data that should have been impossible for such a primitive species to gather, let alone understand. For the first time, uncertainty crept into Marcus's voice. "Where did you get this information?" "You said you've been watching us for 60 years, President Baker replied. "We've been watching you too. Learning, understanding, preparing." In the underwater facility, Dr. Ward began the warm-up sequence for Project Prometheus. The quantum field generators spun up, their hum resonating through the ocean floor. Similar facilities at the poles reported ready status. Above New York, the Imperial flagship's sensors detected unusual energy readings from deep beneath the ocean. Marcus ordered immediate deep scans of the area, but Earth's final message interrupted him. "You assumed our lack of space travel meant we were primitive." President Baker's voice was calm but firm. "You never asked why we focused our research in other directions. 22 hours remaining, Commander. I suggest you use them wisely." The Empire's sensors were now picking up strange energy signatures from both poles as well. Something was happening, something their vast database of conquered civilizations had never encountered before. In orbit, Captain Miller watched as the Imperial ships began to move into attack formation. The Empire wasn't used to being threatened, especially not by a primitive species. Their response would come soon, and it would be meant to crush any hope of resistance. But for the first time in Imperial history, they were the ones who didn't understand what they were facing. High Commander Marcus had run out of patience. Earth's deadline still had 20 hours remaining, but he refused to be threatened by a primitive species. He gave the order for the Imperial fleet to advance past Mars' orbit, beginning their final approach to Earth. "All ships, prepare for simultaneous strike," he commanded. "We will show them the price of defiance." In the underwater facility, alarms flashed as sensors detected the fleet's movement. Dr. Ward looked at the gathered leaders on his screens and nodded. "They're in position. All 3 facilities report ready." President Baker took a deep breath. "Do it." Dr. Ward's fingers flew across the control panel. In perfect synchronization, 3 quantum field generators, hidden in the deepest ocean and at both poles, activated. Blue energy pulsed through massive conduits, and Project Prometheus came to life. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Captain Miller's excited voice came through from the ISS. "The FTL corridors, they're collapsing. Every single one." On the Imperial flagship, alarms blared. Marcus watched in disbelief as his fleet's faster-than-light drive signatures simply vanished. Engineering crews rushed to restore power, but nothing was wrong with their ships. Space itself had changed around them. "Impossible," Marcus whispered, staring at the readings. "The quantum field. They've altered local space-time properties." He turned to his science officer. "Can we open new FTL corridors?" The officer's silver eyes were wide with shock. "No, Commander. Whatever they've done, FTL travel is physically impossible within this solar system now." Dr. Thompson's voice came over all Imperial communications channels. "Your faster-than-light drives work by creating small tears in spacetime. We simply changed the underlying quantum properties of our solar system to prevent those tears from forming. Your ships still work perfectly. They just can't travel faster than light here." The implications hit the Imperial command like a physical blow. Without FTL travel, they were trapped. Their nearest reinforcements were 4 light-years away. Even if they conquered Earth, they would be cut off from the Empire for years. "You don't understand what you've done," Marcus broadcast back. "Our ships still have enough firepower to destroy every city on your planet." "True," General Roberts replied. "But then you'd be stuck here forever. No FTL communications, no reinforcements, no way to get home except by conventional engines, which would take you decades. Are you ready for that kind of commitment, Commander?" In orbit, Imperial ships scrambled to maintain formation. Some tried desperately to establish FTL corridors, but each attempt failed. Captain Miller, watching from the ISS, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The mighty Imperial fleet, reduced to normal space travel, just like humanity. Dr. Ward monitored the quantum field readings. "The effect is stable. It covers the entire solar system, just as we planned." He looked at his life's work with quiet pride. "We didn't build a weapon to destroy them. We built a wall to protect ourselves." On screens worldwide, humanity watched as the Imperial ships hung motionless in space. The mighty Empire faced a choice they'd never encountered before: risk being stranded far from home forever, or retreat. High Commander Marcus paced his bridge. His fleet could still easily destroy Earth's military forces, but a victory here would mean nothing if they couldn't return to the Empire. The engineers had confirmed it would take at least 40 years to reach the nearest Imperial outpost at conventional speeds. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, 3 more ships just burned out their drive systems trying to break through the quantum field. Whatever they've done, it's fundamental. We can't overcome it with power alone." Marcus stared at the blue-green planet below. For the first time in Imperial history, a primitive species had completely countered their greatest advantage. not with weapons or shields, but with a deeper understanding of physics than the Empire had ever achieved. President Baker's voice came through one final time. 19 hours remaining, Commander. The quantum field will remain active until every Imperial ship has left our solar system. The choice is yours. The Empire's mighty fleet hung motionless above Earth, faced with a defense they never imagined possible from such a young species. After 6 hours of tense silence, High Commander Marcus requested a meeting. This time, he asked to speak on the International Space Station, neutral ground between Earth and the Empire. President Baker agreed, knowing this conversation would shape humanity's future among the stars. Captain Miller prepared the station's main module for the historic meeting. Through the window, he could see Imperial ships beginning to pull back, using conventional engines to slowly retreat toward Mars orbit. They weren't leaving completely, not yet, but it was a clear sign the Empire was ready to talk. The meeting room was simple: a table, 6 chairs, and the most spectacular view of Earth anyone could ask for. Marcus arrived first, accompanied by one advisor. He seemed smaller somehow, less intimidating than during their first meeting. Your species, Marcus began, looking out at Earth, is full of surprises. President Baker sat across from him, with Dr. Thompson and General Roberts at his side. We prefer to think of ourselves as cautious, Baker replied. We spent 60 years preparing for this moment. Marcus nodded slowly. While we watched your space programs struggle to reach your own moon, you were studying our FTL signatures. When we monitored your primitive nuclear weapons, you were understanding quantum fields in ways we never considered. He turned his silver eyes to Dr. Thompson. Why? Because we knew we could never match your technology in time, she explained. So we looked for something else, a way to defend ourselves without destroying anyone. Project Prometheus was never meant to be a weapon. In the underwater facility, Dr. Ward watched the meeting through the station's cameras. His life's work had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. The quantum field continued to hum steadily, protecting the entire solar system. You understand, Marcus said carefully, that I must report this to the Empire. Other worlds must be warned about this capability. Good, General Roberts spoke up. Let them know that humanity comes in peace, but we will not be conquered. We don't want to fight the Empire. We want to join the galactic community as equals. Marcus's advisor checked some readings on a portable device. Our preliminary calculations suggest it would take 43 years to reach the nearest Imperial outpost at conventional speeds. However, if we leave the solar system peacefully, you would allow us to reactivate our FTL drives. Of course, President Baker nodded. The quantum field affects only our solar system. Once you pass its boundary, your ships will function normally again. For the first time, Marcus smiled. A genuine expression of respect. In all my years serving the Empire, no species has ever managed to surprise us like this. Most either surrender or fight. You found another way. Through the station's window, they could see more Imperial ships beginning their retreat. They moved slowly, conserving fuel for the journey to the quantum field's edge. Earth's first contact with alien life had nearly become a disaster, but humanity's preparation had turned it into something else entirely. We would like to propose a treaty, President Baker said, pulling out a document. Earth remains independent, but we begin diplomatic relations with the Empire. We offer to share our quantum field research in exchange for peaceful cultural and scientific exchange. Marcus studied the document. You're offering to share the very technology you used to defeat us. Dr. Thompson smiled. Prometheus was never meant to be a secret weapon. It's a shield, not a sword. Perhaps it's time the Empire learned the value of defensive technology over pure military might. As the meeting concluded, Captain Miller watched history being made. The Imperial ships continued their peaceful withdrawal, and for the first time, humanity would meet the galaxy as equals, not subjects. Back on Earth, celebrations began as news of the treaty spread. Dr. Ward finally allowed himself to relax, knowing that Project Prometheus would now serve its true purpose, not just protecting Earth, but helping humanity take its first steps into a larger universe. High Commander Marcus took one last look at Earth before boarding his shuttle. "You know," he said to President Baker, "I believe the Empire needed this lesson, perhaps more than we realized." As the Imperial fleet departed, humanity had proven something remarkable. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior firepower, but from finding a better way.